I see myself on the side camera. Hi. Mike Shivick, local Leicester resident, here tonight with you again on the Citizens Corner. It's been a long time, Leicester. It's good to be back. Thank you. Tonight we're getting close to Halloween, and I think that we can all agree that pumpkin carving is a lost art to some folks. All joking aside, it's a good season to do some good old-fashioned pumpkin carving, and I've been honing in my skills at home. I'm not sure exactly how world-class they are, but for those at home who have never really even thought about it or haven't put much effort into it, maybe this could be a helpful, fun segment for them at home. So again, Mike Shivick, graduate of Leicester High School. I went to public schools here, and I'm a small business owner in town. I practice law here in town. I practice law statewide, doing consumer claims. I was your selectman for a brief period here. For numerous reasons, I've decided to retire. And for other reasons, I continue to get involved in the community and do things that I find can be fruitful without individuals kind of making it their own or trying to cut other people down to make themselves feel like more than they are. But all the horror shows aside, all the parades of horribles aside, let's get to some pumpkin carving. So I went with a general old, medium size. They say jumbo, but I'm trying to get in here on my. I'm trying to get in on my Halloween spirit here in the background. You may hear a little Thriller, classic Halloween stuff. I went with a regular jumbo pumpkin here, run-of-the-mill orange pumpkin. Go to your local pumpkin person, and whether it be Everlast Nursery or Stony Knoll Farm down in Rossdale or whoever is pushing pumpkins, stop in, make sure you use a fresher pumpkin. You don't want a rotten one. Check around. Make sure that there's plenty of hard surface. This is a pretty good looking one. We're going to let it survive a little bit longer. We've got a couple weeks to Halloween. We're going to let them survive. So we're going to focus on this different pumpkin. It's got a nice little face here. And I figured tonight I'm going to use this pumpkin carving set. It's not something I would normally do, but just due to time constraints, this was what worked. I have been able to look at some of these ones on the back there. And for those of you at home, they're very intricate. What I've found is that simpler can be better when you're starting out. And so tonight we're going to start with the old-fashioned puking pumpkin, which is something that you've seen crop up in recent years more often, at least in my frame of reference. And there's a few different ways. If you don't know, you could always follow the directions in the carving set, but most of you can follow along here. And I'm just trying to get a little better in the mood here. Hey, Art, is this level okay?
It's perfect.
Is that fine?
You gotta turn it up a little.
I can?
Yeah.
All right, thanks, man. This is my buddy here. All right. So I've never actually used one of these sets before, so we're going to try to do what we can on this. Oh, we're going to bring it down. Mike's getting a little loud for me. We're good? We got Art's legendary Art Farquette, Craig Street resident, longtime Craig Street resident. God bless. There's a few different ways you could try to do this. It makes sense to maybe kind of map out what is your intent on this. So for me, what I usually try to do is use a quick pen, because you can kind of bruise it up a little bit, and then you're not stuck with whatever it is. If you make the cut, then you're stuck with it. And as good as you think you are, unless you're very well inclined at artistry, which I'm not, you don't want to end up with something that's lopsided or not presentable. So to the best of our ability, we're going to do our pumpkin here, and I'm going to start by doing some of the eyes here. And again, we're using this flatter side, because it seems to be a little bit better in terms of that. So you can go with a square eye, we can go with a complex eye, or do something that's more of like complicated. But we're going to go with the regular old square eye. We could do a little bit maybe out like this if we're given the facial expression of puking pumpkin. Okay? So we're going to find a middle space here, try to line it up with the pen, use our best judgment. There's a reason I got out of HVAC and into law, and it's that I'm not very good at drawing straight lines, and I'm terrible at math. So we've got our center line here. We'll show it to you, boom, right in the middle. Just try to find the center line so you have something to base it off of. You bring it out a couple inches, draw our first line. So the first one there, again, you get a little bit of a line there so you're not stuck with whatever it happens to be. So if you're stuck with something else, you can always erase it. But the point being symmetry and effect. Thanks, buddy. That's a little bit easier. Thanks. See, Art's lashing out, man. He comes out of the shadows sometimes, like me, You gotta watch out for Art. All right. Doing one here. And again, fair use here. We're creating the mood. 42 USC 107, subsection 2. But again, you know what I mean? There's a lot of scary things around this time of year. We have a town meeting coming up, and I believe there was an informational session last night. And there's a lot of money that just kind of came out, and we're able to, maybe it looks like, spend a little bit more than we had been in past years on certain issues. The highway department, very underfunded for a long time. And when I was selecting, that's something that bothered me a lot, was the fact of how few employees we had and how bad the equipment had gotten. And we've done our best to keep up, but it's time to do something here. I mean, that could be scary for some people. So I got the eyes kind of drawn up here, and gives me here we go. Thanks, man. So I got the eyes kind of drawn. It's not as easy to see as I would, but again, if you can kind of see it, we're just trying to sketch those so we have something to lean against while we're doing this. I'm just going to do a basic nose, but I'll do the nose after. And like we're going to say, we're going to do the puking pumpkin, so we need to give it like kind of the expression of vomiting that goes along with that. All right? So we're getting a little gross here, and but we're getting pumpkin gross, so it's not that bad. Again, Michael Jackson, very classic here, setting the mood. Fair use, 42 USC 107 subsection 2. Subsection 1, in any case. Let's get it going here. Let's get a little bit of an open mouth where kind of something's falling out here. We've seen some horror movies in our day maybe, or we have a general idea of what it's like to be in that position. And so we kind of get a mouth going here. And what you want to do in this case, the classic pumpkin would be to the eyes and then the mouth, and then cut the top. But here you want to get into the back here because you're going to scoop the guts out and you want to maintain a structural integrity on top. Oh, there's a phone call. We're not doing a phone call, but my former law school roommate picking a very opportune time, as he so often had in law school. All right, let's get cutting on this. Let's get cutting on the front, and then we can, actually, let's go for the back first. We'll hit the back up. I know, we're all over the place. I am going to use this little saw here. I got a couple of different saws that I can use. So I'm going to go with the bigger saw and get rolling on this part just to get the back end out and get the guts out. You don't want to get too far into it. You want to maintain the structural integrity as much as possible. Integrity is very important, whether in pumpkin carving or in politics. All right, so we're loading this up here. All right, we got our back end off here. For those of you at home, we cut a little back section. We're going to scoop this, but you want to see that back section. So you get the front. You're doing the face on the front, sketching that out in a positive way, of course. And then you want to look at the back end. Bada bang, bada bing. We're going to do some scooping, guys. Now, I was able to provide this. I got a couple of little bags here I want to get so we can make sure that we use due care in protecting this nice studio. So I have been scraping this off, and you want to use, just get those seeds in that kind of pulp out of there to start. And what we're going to see is me rolling up my sleeves on this one. Unfortunately, the white collar is going to get dirty tonight. And as always, that classic background at the end of that Michael Jackson video, setting the tone here, giving us the creepy sounds we need to set this tone for this theme. It's a thrilling time to be here, and being a fair use, it's not scary to us. However, we did discuss that town meeting was coming up. It's a special fall town meeting, and they're looking to spend some money. It looks like the new town administrator is doing a pretty good job as far as identifying funds that were available to our town, and there's been some grants from prior boards and prior town administrator Kevin Mizikar. What a great guy Kevin was. Working with him was phenomenal, and working with the laughter is not to do with that. It was great to work with Kevin, especially on some of those water issues. If you're in Cherry Valley and Rochdale, what you're getting is you're paying for some pretty heavy water rates there. And I know that people aren't really in the mood to drink their water after everything, so they're paying for the water at an increased rate, and then they're paying for bottled water. Again, just to show you, trying to scoop out the insides the best we can with this. We're getting it all down to the bottom. And once you get it to the bottom, we can try to extract it and get going on the front part. So again, if you're in Cherry Valley or Rochdale, you're paying for bottled water, you're paying for increased prices of water, and for those of you that are in the know, you're paying for the water lines, Leicester Water Supply District, you're paying for Moose Hill Reservoir, and the maintenance. You're paying for it as a ratepayer and a taxpayer, and then you're paying for it as a state taxpayer through the DCR to maintain it as well. So while we continue to pay and pay and pay for a water supply, which seems to have problems that are nowhere near ending. In my understanding, the Cherry Valley Rochdale Water District's looking for somewhere close to $10 million, as was shown in a recent report obtained. So they're looking for another $10 million and saying that Moose Hill's too expensive. You know, it just seems to be that if that's the case, then why are we keeping things the same if it would cost about the same to bring Moose Hill online? And we're carving the pumpkins here. We're going to give Michael Jackson one more run through here, and maybe we'll be done by the end of that one. But again, we're talking scary Halloween stories. And, people's tax bill can be a little scary sometimes as well. Lucky's coming in. Thanks, buddy. Oh, he's always so timely. I thought he had left, but here he is. I am almost done scraping out the interior here of this pumpkin. And thanks to Art, thanks to Lucky again. So you get all this gunk out of here. You want to preserve this back cap, because that's going to kind of cap on the back when you stick a candle or a light in there. Just kind of trying to get this junk off. And, all right. So we have our back off. Our insides are pretty well scooped out. And I'm going to get this into a bag so that way there's no mess here for these guys after. So what we'll do is we'll get this here. All right. And, you can clean up when you feel like in your own homes, of course. So, again, town meeting coming up October 30th, 7 o'clock, Town Hall Gym. There's going to be, they're looking for a debt exclusion for a couple of articles. And, again, that highway department very sorely underfunded for a long time. And happy to see Mr. Griffin's kid getting some action here, trying to build us up. So we're in the back end here, cleaned out. We're going to get to the front. I'm going to start getting these eyes cut out. There's a couple different ones in this set. I'm going to try this medium-sized one, and maybe I can get a little bit better of a dig. All right.
I have something I want to tell you.
What does Michael Jackson want to tell us?
I'm not like other guys.
Oh.
Of course not. That's why I love you. No, I mean I'm different.
Some girls have heard that one before, I'm sure. Some guys have used that one. More scary stories here from Michael. Man, what a great musician he was. So we're working the eyes here. We're making sure not to overcut, obviously, or undercut. And when you get cut through, this will kind of just extract itself, and that'll become part of your puke guts as well. So you got one eye done. We're getting to the other one. All right. Working the second eye, making sure to keep it symmetrical to the extent possible, which is why we drew the line in the first place. Seems basic, but maybe some people are just trying to get right into it. Pays to cover yourself up front on something like that. Because once it's cut, you gotta go get another pumpkin. Luckily you have a backup, but hopefully we won't have to get into it for the reasons stated. So we're here getting ready for Halloween, and again, attorney Mike Shivick here, former selectman, retired selectman. And it was a pleasure to represent the town for a number of different reasons. I was able to meet a number of different residents that have the same interests. They want to see the town move forward in a positive way, and not necessarily just in a way that serves certain people's interests. So, meeting all the different people in Leicester and getting a chance to see some of the different restaurants and businesses in town was really something that was a positive thing for me as a selectman. And, I wouldn't rule out running again by any stretch of the imagination, especially if, things continue down the same path in Cherry Valley and Rochdale. Let's see here. So we're getting these eyes cut out. Here. So you're seeing a little bit here what a problem can be, besides Mr. Jackson turning into the werewolf, would be these little stringies kind of getting in your way. You want to make sure you cut those down as much as possible and get yourself in a good situation. And what we'll do is we'll file them down just a little bit more, but we're going to get to working on this mouth. And since I retired from the Board of Selectmen here in Leicester in 2017, I have been just going statewide, working consumer claims. Some of you see me over at my mother's property in Rochdale, working on her property, trying to bring it back to good condition in certain aspects. She's in the hospital, as some of you know. She's doing a lot better. And she's home at home. Hi, Ma. Just cutting this up. If you want to work this mouth, again, there's a number of different ways you can do it. If you look behind me, there's a few different good examples. If you want to try that, great. Not within my skill set. All right, so we got this mouth out, and we can use that for a number of different ways in the final steps of this part. So I got this. We're going to edge it out a little bit. So again, if you're going to town meeting, it's October 30th, 7 o'clock p.m. If you're a voter in the town, you can go to town meeting if you're registered to vote and participate. And oftentimes what you see is kind of like a top-down approach to governance without a lot of explanations, short on info. And hopefully we're not looking at it this time through, but in the past, maybe things have been a little bit less than candid on a number of different issues. Some of you may vehemently disagree, but many of you may agree. So we hope that everything's looking good as far as information is concerned. And if you're a voter, you're basically a member of the town legislature. And if you're able to come to the meeting and you're able to vote, you're able to participate. It means you can make motions. That means you can ask things, point of information, that kind of stuff. And the parliamentary procedure rules may be a little bit difficult for some people to digest in the first part. But, it's the basis of what we're supposed to be able to do as Americans that's supposed to be different than every place else. And I found that people aren't as interested in those rights, which separate us from countries that maybe we consider ourselves better than or more free than, And what I would hope people would do if they take anything else away from my, my time in the select board is that people should be participating and not be scared to speak up, especially regarding things like the water, where you're paying 3 or 4 times over and the water is still not solved. It's my understanding, the Board of Selectmen really hasn't done anything on that. I know the the prior Board of Selectmen that I was on, we authorized the Moose Hill study, and people had thrown out $100 million as a number. I don't believe that ever to be a real number, but that was never a real number. It was a scare tactic meant to keep things the same. So when we're looking at having some money to spend in serious water problems in 2/3 of the town, the Board of Selectmen is making those decisions to not pursue something that we're paying 3 and 4 times for. And as we get towards this part of the issue, you want to make sure you go as slow as possible around these mountains. If you can try to make a sharp corner, if you let the knife do the work, you don't have to get deep into it. You don't have to really put elbow grease into it, if you will. It'll cut on its own. You just want to make sure, especially when you're on the orange skin portion, to take it easy on that, because you want to make sure it looks good and presentable for anybody. Unless you want to do whatever you want, but whatever. I would want to make it presentable. All right, and so, if you look at the police dispatch issue, we built that police station, and I think we built it part of the reason we wanted to have our own holding cells, we wanted to have our own dispatch. Lo and behold, months, years down the road, we're putting the dispatch in Worcester. We're the only ones that did that. So now we're paying twice for the dispatch because we paid here, and now we're paying again in Worcester to be part of that. And we don't have holding cells, so that's something else that's something we're paying for to hold someone, maybe bring it over to Spencer, deal with it that way. We have a brand new fire station that's fit for a full-time fire department, but we don't have a full-time fire department, and we do have a full-time police department, so we're not fully funding our police department in a number of ways. And people had brought up the issue with the police department dispatch when it happened, and it seemed to me that the party line, if you will, of the establishment was that this is what's good for everybody. But no one else seemed to sign on to this, and it's a good facility, but not having anybody there is of concern to a lot of residents for a lot of reasons. And, when you're looking at paying 2 and 3, 4 times for the water, and now you're paying 2 times for dispatch and holding cells, and you're paying for that big facility over there. And there's a lot of question about, how that facility was built and how this fire station was built. But whenever you bring those questions up, you get a lot of red faces coming at you. So let's get back to the orange face here, Mr. Pukin Pumpkin. And we're edging these little sides out. Again, you're going to get some stringage in there, and you want to stick as close to these lines as possible. We're going to get to the nose and do a quick nose. So we could do a circle or a triangle nose. We're thinking of trying to stick with the face that we're trying to portray. And we'll see if something is a little bit more triangular like this might work, or a flatter triangle in here. Again, I'm no artist. But hey, it's fun, it's Halloween. Get the stuff out of here. So, back to town meeting again. You're paying 2 and 3 times for the water, and you're paying multiple times for this, and now you have a fire station that's fit for a full-time fire department. We don't have one of those. That's scary. I understand. It's very scary. And for you at home who are watching your dollars, you have a town meeting coming up, and you're a member of the legislature. And just because somebody gets red-faced, it doesn't mean they're right. Before I was ever elected, I went to a number of town meetings and watched certain members of the Board of Selectmen get up there and yell at people and yell at people just asking questions and wanting to know what's going on. I wonder why they would get so upset like that. You know what I mean? If you're elected to try to help people get a better result from their government, is that what everybody's motivation is? Is everybody's motivation to help the town and to help the town function properly, or is it, to make sure that, we can see what we can get, And you see people paying that have paid taxes their whole life, and I remember specifically the Cherry Valley Rochdale Water District. One of their meetings, they had tried to say that if they didn't vote the way the district wanted to, that they were going to have to pay $700 a month for a water bill. Now, that was based upon misinformation, which no reasonable person could have put out there unless they were intentionally trying to deceive people. I'm not trying to say that anybody tried that, but it's tough to believe that you can make a mistake where a letter says a $25,000 fine and take that and run with it and say $25,000 a day, and then come back and say you need money to run the water district manual connection and then hire another person at $80,000 a year. And then you find out that the Cherry Valley Sewer District is sending letters to the governor saying that they're basically not solvent. And so they're sliding people over to Cherry Valley Rochdale Water District. So these little chair of games that are kind of being played on the people in town, you know. I'm just here. I'm retired, and we're doing pumpkins. So if you're at town meeting, though, you do have a right to, you know, raise questions. If you weren't sure of something and you wanted to know, you could just stand up and say, point of information. I don't know if everybody's able to, you know, summon the gumption to do so. But it's well within your right. You're a legislator, the same as your state rep represents you in the legislature at the State House. All right. So we're getting to this part. Is pretty much squared away. We've got the, you can see right through it here, which is why, of course, you're going to want this to stick in accordingly. And if it doesn't stick in, you can use what amounts to either, you can use some kind of little pin or some kind of a toothpick to cut it, or you can just cut it a little bit larger and put it in that way. So what we're doing here is the puking pumpkin, which is a notorious acolyte here in the, let me just fix this, excuse me. And pardon me again, I regret, if you're still watching at home, the error and the delay here. Just want to make sure we have that mood set. It's Halloween. So when you got your puking pumpkin, you want to make sure that you have a different kind of look to it. We got the nose squared away. We got that squared away. We do maybe just want to squeeze this out a little bit more and make sure that those points, that these points are really tight. And you can make them tight. All right, so we're getting this squared away, tightening up. You maybe give it a little scraperoo. All right. And if you're watching at home, it's not October 26th yet. I think that State Senator Moore is having a meeting with some concerned ratepayers from Cherry Valley Rochdale Water District. That's up at B-Law's Diner on 1026 at, I believe, 10 a.m. You're going to have to check with the senator's office for that information. I'm not sure about that. All right, puking pumpkin. You want to have some good chunks in there, all right? We've been to a few bonfire parties in town back in the day, or alternatively, we've all had the flu, and we know what a good puking pumpkin might look like. So when we get it, you want to maybe have a little bit in there, so it's kind of giving the presence, you're getting the appearance of it falling out. And when you get really, really deep into it, you want to really give the good appearance. You know, you can do whatever you want with this in your own home, or however you do it, but you know, it looks like you can, gross. Oh man, I can't believe I really appreciate Art letting me get dirty here in the studio here. So we got this here, and we got our puking skills are good. We're gonna pummel that in there a little bit too, maybe string it out a little bit. Oh yeah. Is it possible to get a close-up of that? Can we get a close-up of the puking pumpkin? If not, you know, I understand. But, you know, we started off with our regular pumpkin, and just again went through the eyes, traced everything out. Pretty basic stuff. But hey, it's Halloween. Oh, here it comes. We're getting it. It's working, folks. Let me get out of the way here. So you want to make sure you get in on that. You know, use the chunks, use the pulp, and get that back end in the back. You know, put a nice indentation there if you have to get it in. Mine's not sticking as well as I would like to, because that's how life works. But I'll see if I'll try this angle. Hold on. Ah, there it is. And if I get this to sit in here correctly, I'd be very happy. It's close. I'll take it. No, one more little pin. We'll pin up that backside. And I've had to do this a couple of times in my career, unfortunately. All right, we got that, and then we pinned up the back a little bit, just to make sure that the back end stays in. Lucky, don't be taking my fingerprints. I told you already. Just kidding, just kidding. All right, so we got ourselves here. We got ourselves our puking pumpkin. And, Attorney Mike Shivick here, retired selectman coming at you here, just giving you some info here on how to get your pumpkin rolling. You want to get your pumpkin on. You want to get your legislation on. Make sure you get there on the 30th of October. It pays dividends to find out information. You can always call the town administrator or call one of your selectmen and ask them for the information that you need before you show up at town meeting. But if there's something else that they're not answering or you want to ask it that way, the best time, they have to answer those questions. If you know legislative procedure and parliamentary procedure, you can move a question, you can end debate, you can continue debate, you can limit debate. It's your world, and America was built out in Lexington and Concord on the blood of people who died for the right to do this and not be ruled by tyrants. And unfortunately, due to laziness and failure to participate or people's participation in severe disappointment for various reasons, they don't participate. But if we want the government to work for ourselves, we got a $30-something million budget that we're working on. There's some good improvements coming on in town, but there's some questions about some of these underlying issues like the water district and stuff. And it's very, very scary stuff if you look at it from a planning perspective. So get out there on the 30th, and you're on the 31st, get out there, do your trick-or-treating, and keep it safe, keep it clean. And Mike Shivick here, retired selectman out here, wishing you a happy time when you go out trick-or-treating, and make sure that you guys, do your stuff however you want to do it. We want the puker, do what you want to do, and it's your Halloween. Get out there and have fun. And I appreciate Art and Lucky and the crew allowing me to be in and mess up their studio a little bit. And it's nice to see you all at home, and it's nice to be back. Thanks.